Hi class, this is my video response for redirections number 7. So first I'm going to talk about Koopman's book. He says that surveillance happens on all aspects of identification of each individual in the US. In the 1900s, the Census Bureau created birth registration, birth certificates, and death certificates. These were eventually digitized, and even passports could track an individual's unique signature. Next, Social Security numbers were created. Social Security allowed for the tracking of employees, employers, and wages. When Social Security numbers are compromised, it greatly affects one's identity because a lot of personal information will be exposed in the wrong hands. In Don DeLillo's White Noise, he wrote, "You're the sum total of your data. No man escapes that." Koopman writes, communicative theories of democracy is if communication is the symptomatic response to an information fever, then the cause of that fever cannot be cured by its symptoms. Communication cannot address itself to information, but can only presuppose it. Koopman also talks about social media accounts allow for communication, how people see themselves and others, and provide data points for consumer marketing and political campaigns. Next, I'll talk about Lauer's book. On to the early 19th century, people received credit in the US based on their reputation, character, and trustworthiness, and their financial factors were not as important. Later on, credit reporting was done using the rule of the 3 C's: character, capacity, and capital. Credit reporting firms in the mid-19th century were devoted to collecting, organizing, and selling information about specific people. This is something we still see today, but affects everyone. It is shocking to hear how long it's been going on, and at first credit reports were not successful at finding candidates who would be able to stay in business and pay back their loan because, again, they were only going off character and not the other threes of capacity and capital. Lauer concludes chapter 1 with the quote, "The mercantile agency system of the 1840s introduced an entirely new way of identifying, classifying, and valuing individuals as economic subjects. What happened is his successors intended was not just a highly coordinated system of disciplinary surveillance, but the very idea of financial identity itself. This means people were being watched based on how they use money, which then created their own personal financial identity. The invention of the computer enhanced the quality of credit reports because of the coding required to reproduce a credit report. It was a more sophisticated system to help banks determine if a client would be a risk to give a loan to. In the early 1960s, banks made sure to keep their clients' information private and only share information if they had written consent. But by the mid-1960s, it was unavoidable for banks to keep everything private for their clients, as still seen today. Then there's a quote that says, "I'm constantly amazed at the average person's complete lack of understanding of the functions of the credit bureau. There is, in my opinion, no organization that affects the daily lives of so many people that is so little understood as the credit bureau. This abruptly changed in the mid-1960s, but not in the industry favor. The public was awakened and the Americans were outraged. They had little control over this. This soon led to the FCRA, which was passed in 1960, and the Consumer Credit Protection Act of 1968. These stories connect by just as Social Security numbers are leaked, as stated by Koopman, Lauer added that credit reports are leaked too. After reading from both books, my prior thinking has been disrupted about surveillance. I did not realize how many aspects of life contribute to surveillance. It starts the moment we are born, when we're issued a birth certificate, to the moment we die and a death certificate is issued, and many instances between in our life, such as credit reports, consumer marketing, Social Security, social media, and paychecks. Lauer shared an example on how Bruce Steenberg received a letter from Bank of America saying he was eligible to apply for a special card. He was angry to receive this because he never had an account with Bank of America, meaning his private information was sold to them. Pre-screening potential customers became more popular. I can share, I constantly get letters in the mail offering me to sign up for another credit card to get $200 in cash back. Ooh. Surveillance modern history suggests that to me that data politics mean that surveillance is becoming more and more unethical. It started decades ago as a way to vet someone for being able to take a loan, to now businesses buying personal information for their own gain, such as getting us to sign up for a credit card or consumer marketing. I learned that surveillance is much more prevalent than I realized, and it became very more concerning for the future if we are not careful of how we share personal information. Although sometimes we have no control over the sharing of personal information. Compared to what I wrote on Monday's post to today, I definitely have a much different opinion on surveillance. It's concerning. It seems like it's getting in the realm of unethical. I think others would say it already is unethical, and we have to be mindful of what we share. I think a great example is if you don't have to legally put your date of birth on something, let's say you're just signing up for a rewards program for a restaurant, just make up a day because then that's another way that the internet doesn't have to have your date of birth. Thanks for listening.